Okay, hello friends. I am hopeful that this is actually broadcasting live. There's been some changes to the software that I use, so we'll see. Welcome to Journey Home Meditation's Morning Sit. If you're just seeing this for the first time, we're going to be doing some shared breathing practices, and I'll do a little bit of contemplation, and we'll go through some meditation practice and some poetry, and all that is just to say I'm really happy to be here today. I really am happy to be here. Let's just take a few moments to settle into our bodies and let our bodies settle into the place where we are. We spend so much of our days moving, whether physically moving our body, going from place to place, or even if we're not moving our bodies, our minds are just going. So often we jump from reality to reality, from layer to layer, this entire universe of consciousness on this one thing, into the next. And so much of it is bringing our attention and our awareness so far outside of our body we couldn't even pinpoint where it's coming from, where the information is about. We're wrapped up in 30-second videos and finding the next funny thing to share with a friend, or reading the next terrifying article on the end of the world. We are surfing the apocalypse. But as we have our entire, our consciousness, our attention, our cognitive mind being snared at all times by something outside of ourselves, really is a predicament. It really is. It puts us in a unique position when it comes to being a conscious being. I don't think that other conscious beings are this concerned about things that are outside of their present moment as we currently are today. So taking these moments to just simply reclaim our own consciousness, our own state of awareness, and bringing that into our bodies. This is really, it's an act of liberation. So let's take a few moments just to settle in. And even as I am finding myself moving into a place of stillness, my body is not finding that place of rest. I'm moving into the asana, the seat. And my knowledge is that if it weren't for this practice, I would just be moving through my entire day with that constant feeling that I have, that I feel diminishing now in my body, that feeling of unsettledness, of discomfort. That would be such a part of my makeup throughout the day that honestly, at this point, I don't know how I would make it through those days. After having this practice of taking this time to sort out what's happening inside of my own body each morning. Truly does, it's not making me a better person, but I feel like I'm getting better at being a person. I'm getting better at this, meaning I don't walk through my days feeling as self-defeated as I think I once did for quite some time. I think that from the time of my early teen years, I started to feel like I really, really needed to dissociate from my own body. And that just became the go-to. So the practice of giving my own body some kindness and attention in the morning it's really a homecoming. Hence the name Journey Home. We get to come into ourselves and get to be embodied. So let's see if you can focus on just your breath for 3 breaths in a row. And that sounds like an easy task, but really let's give it a shot, and you'll see how quickly it is that our mind wants to skip to the next thing. So the practice of 3 breaths is the practice of from the beginning of the breath through the pauses and the end of the breath, your focus is fully in the breath. And if you can make it through 3 of those, with that level of attention and awareness into the body, you start to develop an intimacy and an affection with the self. And it doesn't take long. And the more you work at it, the longer you can be with it. But 3 breaths, that's a good place to start. I'll invite the bell. And breathing in. Finding that that point of invitation. There's a point there where this becomes not a forced practice, but this, all of a sudden your whole body just says, yeah, stay here. Sit a while. So let's do that. I was having a conversation this morning with a dear friend of mine, and I said a phrase that, we've all heard, I'm sure, and I've probably said it 1,000 times in my life, but it really clicked in to a new place. It settled into a new feeling when I heard the words together, and I said, it feels really self-defeating. And I could carry on with the conversation, but there was a compartment in my brain that was like, we're going to overanalyze this all day long. Self-defeating. Almost in its very core, it is just steeped in that monotheistic culture of like punishment and self-flagellation, and all of that is kind of built in there. What does it mean to be defeated? Well, it means that you were fighting, you were in a war, you were battling for something. So to be self-defeated, it's like you're playing a game of chess just with yourself, and no matter who wins, you lose. It's pretty simple. And that got me thinking about just my concept of self. Like, who am I in my own construct? Who am I? And I know that's, an age-old question. But all these expressions of self, I can recognize them over time. I can recognize those parts of me that was displaying or cosplaying or trying something out, or all these different ways to be identified by others that we cultivate and that we practice. But there's still this part of us that is not those things. And there's seems to be this urge to protect and defend that idea of self. And oftentimes, for a lot of people that I know, that idea of self is a pretty negative view of self. It's that part of yourself that calls bullshit on all the other parts, but not in a helpful way. Sometimes that voice of calling bullshit is really helpful. It's really important. When we start getting wrapped up in our beliefs and our ideologies, and that takes precedence over our relationships, we need that voice from the back of the class that just says, bullshit. When our ideologies start to separate us and isolate us, that is that voice of self-defeat. It's that negative self-view. So in that internal game of chess, you almost got to ask yourself if that perspective that we have of ourselves is cheating. It's cheating somehow. Because it doesn't matter what we do with all of those other parts of who we are, those other things that make us a reflection in the world, those other pieces of identity that others will identify us. I'm a son to my mother, I'm a father to my child, I'm a friend, I'm an enemy to some people. And that's a sacred place to be as well. The Joker and the Batman need each other more than anyone else. That's the greatest love story of our time. But there's that one piece that we think is us. Beyond all those other things, there's that one piece that we get so convinced that that's me, right there, being the loser. That's me messing up. That's me self-isolating again. And when I said those words this morning, it's a really self-defeating experience. I didn't realize how true those words felt for me, even not in the context of what I was saying, because we were talking about somebody else, but how often it is that I step into that role of my own foe, my own adversary, instead of my own advocate. And that got me thinking about all sorts of ways that we hyphenate the self. Self-fulfilling prophecies. We usually reserve that for worry, when we worry and propose the worst possible future, and then it comes true. Well, that was a self-fulfilling prophecy. You really made that happen, didn't you? We don't say that when we get that raise at work, or when our partner gives us that, unsolicited kiss on the neck, or when our kid just passively, in passing mentions how you have influenced them for the better. We don't go, well, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, ain't it? Decades ago in Portland, we had a thriving poetry community. And when I say thriving, I mean we really were, everybody that was a part of it was feasting on poetry and on the presence of one another. It was really beautiful. And this is not nostalgia that's painting it this way. This was really a Renaissance movement amongst maybe not a lot of people, but there was a lot of energy in that small group. And one of the poets, her name was Heather, she used to have a line that sticks with me all the time, and it says, "Why do we only say that's life when something bad happens?" We only say that's life when something bad happens. And it's that self-defeat. That self-destruct. Is there any other kind of destruction than self-destruction? It's an honest question. Sometimes we need that voice from the back of the class that says bullshit, so we can understand, there's a tool here for self-destruction that's needed. I need to get rid of that part of the self that is separating me from everything good in my life. And it doesn't mean that you don't have good things happening all the time, but if there is that voice that we bring our focus and awareness to, that's this internal voice of criticism and dismissiveness, and we bring our attention there, it's the same thing as bringing our attention to the propaganda outside of our bodies that bring us into that same level of division. the government propaganda that scares you away from loving 1% of the population. That government propaganda that demands your loyalty and gets it through fear, that commands an oath to your own fear. That corporate propaganda that tells you you're not good enough until you buy this thing, or until you adopt these values, or until you comment this on your social media. And it all seems really basic. It all seems really easy to talk about. It's the low-hanging fruit when we're talking about the way that our identity is being crafted by those with an agenda to extract from us. But when we start releasing ourselves of the other, and we start to go, wait a second, what's playing on outside of me is being projected from inside as well. Holy shit. The shadows on the cave wall, I'm holding the light. It's like I'm sticking it right in my back and shining it right through my heart onto the wall. There it is. There's my heart. And inside of myself, I'm containing this part of me that still wants to believe that no matter how much I want to be a part of the whole, I'm still separated. And this is the human predicament. And this is the birthplace of loneliness, and this is the birthplace of group identity, how we identify based on these politics of whatever sort with another set of people, not based on our being, but on our doing or on our believing. All of this comes down to that place. And so I heard it today, self-defeating. What an interesting concept that we would be at war inside. What an interesting place to live. A war zone. And of course there are real children in real places that have real wars occurring. And when I say real, I mean material. I mean bombs dropping from skies. Family in the rubble. That's really happening. And so many of us are so self-consumed into that internal war that we feel impotent to stopping the external wars. We don't know what to do. And I'm not proposing any solutions. I'm just sort of pointing at something and calling it out. Hey, let's look at this. What is this? What is this thing? What is this thing inside of me? What is this thing I see from you? What is this thing in the middle of our street? Our house in the middle of the street. What is it? What's in our house? Let's do some housekeeping today. A few breaths together. And then we'll do some bell hooks, magic. And then invite the bell. Really letting it go. Bringing the shoulder blades together just a bit in the back, straightening the spine, leveling the chin, softening that belly. Big, beautiful bellies. We want that big, soft, round belly. Make it as soft as you can. Relax the shoulders and breathing in. Release. In. Well, we're nice and open. Let's move right into number 38 from Bell Hook's Appalachian Elegy, Poetry in Place. Toward light each bird flies higher, then swooping down as though to plummet, as though air a net to catch and comfort. Who can fear earth? Who can fear sky? When faced with an infinite possibility, each moment given a chance to soar, to enter beyond. Let's do another reading. Toward light each bird flies higher, then swooping down as though to plummet, as though air a net to catch and comfort. Who can fear earth? Who can fear sky? When faced with an infinite possibility, each moment given a chance to soar, to enter beyond. What an easy thing to picture in my mind, really, these birds flying in the sky. And then, if you've ever lived near water or spent significant time near water, there's a chance that you've seen a bird swoop from the air down and disappear into the water, which is to disappear into the earth. The earth is also water. We sometimes differentiate earth as being the soil and the dirt, but this is earth right now. This air that we're breathing, this is earth. That water is earth. And to swoop down from above the water, down and disappear under the water, and then to come back up, it's really a phenomenal and exciting thing to see. This morning on my drive, I was able to witness a fox grab a squirrel and make of that squirrel food, and then pick that squirrel up and just calmly trot away, taking it back, presumably to a family. We have a whole family of fox that live right on the road down from our home, and we were able to witness. Must have been shortly after they were born. About 6 or 8. I think they're called kits. I'm not sure. The babies trying to cross the road with the mother, and it was. It's one of those breathtaking moments, like the right colors of a sunset will just grab your attention. The sun is there all the time. It's been there for millions of years. But there's moments when it catches the earth just right and everything falls into place to create that moment of magic. And that was one of those moments of magic when those foxes were just happened to be crossing the road right as we were coming home, coming into dusk. And this was one of those moments this morning with the fox catching the squirrel. And this poem is one of those moments when I can picture that bird disappearing into the water to find its food. And swooping down as though to plummet, as though air a net to catch and comfort. It's kind of pointing to that thing where I can't help but think that maybe we're the species who's burdened with consciousness that eats itself. It's taken out in so many different places away from the self, and then it just comes home to eat itself. And when I see these moments with these other creatures, I can see that they're really just experiencing a living moment, that I don't think they're trotting along. I don't think that fox was going, yeah, okay, you got the squirrel, but it could have been bigger. And I don't think that fox was concerned in that moment with how it appeared to anyone else. Now, the squirrel, on the other hand, I'm sure it had a lot of things going through its mind, but when we get to these last lines in this poem, when faced with an infinite possibility, Each moment given a chance to soar, to enter beyond. What is beyond? And beyond has no end. So when we enter beyond, we move into possibility. We move into that which lives just on the other side of everything I know already. It's just right on the other side of it. There's a quote written on my wall, and I don't remember who it's by, but it was shared by a local woman who comes to Journey Home, and she wrote it on a piece of paper and left it on my desk. And it said, everything I ever wanted was just on the other side of what I'm willing to do. Beyond. There's beyond. And one of my favorite mantras to chant is Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhiswaha. Beyond, beyond, beyond. To go beyond the beyond. And that's really, for me, that's about when I get stuck in that self-defeating space, that place of war with myself, I can remember you are larger than this. You are so much. You are so much. And it's not about your value is so high, but you are more than that thought. You are more than your concept of self. So much more. We are so much farther beyond our own conceptualization. So much so that we don't even have to go anywhere else in our mind. We can just come to the breath and into the body, and there's a rich, full existence right here in any moment. When I'm with you and you're with me, we are beyond. We have the opportunity to be beyond. And the way these birds in the poem, understand the air as a net to catch them. We think of air as, this space where you fall through it. But the air is a net to catch me. My existence is here for me. Something there, I think. There's something there. I saw another thing that at first I felt a little bit of resistance to, but then I really fell in love with it. And it said, I said, hey, just a reminder, you've survived all of it so far. Yeah. And my first thought was, yeah, but aren't we tired of surviving? No. We're tired of trying to extend ourselves and exhausting ourselves to be anything other than what we are. That's what's exhausting. And there we are this whole time, this beautiful miracle of being, or this non-miracle. We are this thing that just is. It's not a miracle, it's how it's functioning. It's how it's made to be. There's nothing particularly unique about you that makes you so fallible. No. We're built this way. We can be beautiful and we can have difficulty all at the same time. So why do we only say that's life when bad things happen? So today, when you find a moment of love in the world, I want you to say, well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I woke up this morning needing love and having love to give, and here's this opportunity. Wow, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then we give love and we receive love. And it's not as difficult as we've been taught. So thank you to Bell Hooks for reminding me. Thank you to those birds for teaching her. And I want to say thanks to my friend Frank Sauce. You can find him on Substack. If you look for Frank Sauce, S-A-U-C-E, Sauce, Frank Sauce. He's a fantastic writer, truly an amazing, gifted writer. And we were roommates for some time, and just, we've been compatriots in this incarnation. We've been friends for many, many years. And he recommended to me to read another book by Bell Hooks, Teaching to Transgress. And I started listening to the audiobook because I found that my attention span, I hear stories better than read them these days. I hear poetry better than I can read it off the page. And her book, Teaching to Transgress, is really a phenomenal account of how she, as a teacher, has developed through these systems that teach obedience to use these tools that we have to transgress. And it's really gorgeous. It's really beautiful writing. So thank you, Frank Sauce. I recommend anybody here that's on Substack already, go check out Frank Sauce. It's free. And if you're not on our Substack, if you're listening to this through Facebook or through YouTube or any of the other places, Twitch, I don't know where else we are, I recommend going over and checking out Journey Home Meditation on Substack.com. That's journeyhomemeditation.substack, substack.com. And starting your own free account there, it's super quick, super easy. Just sends you an email, let you know when things are updated. And there's free options, and there's you can also choose to financially support what we're doing here with Journey Home Meditation, which is very, very appreciated as well. But I recommend checking that out because it's going to have a more integrated experience. But thanks for being here this morning. I really appreciate you taking time in your day to tend to your own bodies and your own breath, so that when you and I meet somewhere out here today, or any time that we do, we can both see that, yes, you know that you're breathing, and that makes it easier for me. Thanks, friends.